Comfortable so we're not so fidgety. All right, let's start with inhaling for 4. And hold. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And exhale through your mouth for 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And inhale. And hold. And exhale. Inhale. And hold. And exhale. Last time, inhale. And hold. And exhale. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was wonderful. I find it so relaxing on the hold.
Recording
Like when you hold. What's the physiological? Does anybody know the physiological reasoning behind that? Like when you hold, I don't know, like my whole body relaxes. I'll have to look it up. Okay, great.
Some kind of vagus nerve hocus pocus.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I know
Yeah.
something a little bit about holding the breath because I work a lot with neuro-emotional bioenergetics. And so when we hold our breath, the body will automatically prioritize what's important. So it really helps to then activate that parasympathetic nervous system, really helping us to harmonize the sympathetic and the parasympathetic.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Thank you. That's Emily?
Yes.
Thank you very much. So it knows what's important. So, okay. Okay. I could go on a whole thing with this. But anyway, I find it very calming. Thank you so much, Shannon. And who do we have guiding us today?
I'm looking that up. I'm not positive.
I know this has been a busy, let me see. I might have messenger people.
Did you, Natalie?
Natalie? Oh, Natalie, thank you.
Yes.
Natalie, you are more than welcome to give a little disclaimer, if you like, to say that you're not a professional coach and any you misspeak or responsible, and no one's going to provide any information that is actually on the national board test. If anybody talks about taking the test, it is a test that they had in their program as opposed to the national board.
Yeah, for sure. Do you mind allowing me to screen share?
Oh, absolutely. Do that. Hold on. Are you? Yes. Try now, please.
Okay.
Are you able to? I'm just wondering if there's something I have to do on my end.
I just have to go to my settings really quick.
She's able to now.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. That's good. So this is working out.
Yes.
Okay, so I had to go to my settings to allow Zoom. Now it wants me to quit and reopen, so I might have to exit the Zoom and then I can come back.
Okay,
Okay, so let me do that really quick.
okay.
There's an upgrade on a Mac that has to be done, but I had to help somebody else do it because they couldn't share their screen. And I wonder if she's got to go
Here,
through those
you need
steps.
to do that. You need to come out and then come back in.
Yeah, but it still didn't work for her, so hopefully she can share her screen. There she is, I think. There, I just readmitted a couple people.
So maybe while we're waiting, may I ask a question?
Please.
Sherry, you had just mentioned disclaimers and that it's not the national test, that any time we refer to the test, it's a test from a program. Can you?
Okay, so if someone says in our conversation that I took the test, they're not talking about the National Board Certification Test. They're going to be speaking directly about a test that they took that was with their program or a practice test.
A paid program, not
Either
a free program.
Yeah, either a paid program or through, say, IIN or Well Coaches or FDN or whatever, Duke, whatever program that they were with, because we legally aren't allowed to talk about what was on the test if we've taken it. Yeah. So
That makes
we
perfect
just,
sense. Yeah.
yeah.
And
So I-
typically, also the paid programs, you sign a disclaimer that you won't be sharing that information because you paid for that class. That curriculum needs to stay in that class. And this is a free group that we're sharing, so we just want to none of us will look good in orange overalls, so we want to stay free and clear.
Yay, it worked. Okay.
It
So any-
worked. You did
So
it.
any test that we refer to is neither from any program that we took or the national program. It's a program that we've heard of on the street and seen a test talked about somewhere, but we aren't really saying anything more than that. Is that right?
So all the studying we're doing is for the National Board Certification Test.
Yes.
But that if someone refers to when I took the test, they're talking about a practice test that they took, not the actual National Board Certification test. A practice test or a test that they had to take within their program to be able to pass their program.
Got it. Okay.
Okay,
That
I
makes
kind of
sense.
think I just did this disclaimer for you, but I'll go ahead and finish it. And that is just the fact that Natalie's presenting tonight, and anything that she says is study material that she's gathered from multiple sources, and that if she misspeaks, we're all here to provide information to each other. And if we're not all perfect, we may misspeak, and you have to do your own research, and we're not going to be, no one in this call is going to be liable for anything that was said that could possibly be wrong. And we are not going to refer to any information that anyone knows, as a matter of fact, that is on the test, but based off of the competencies, we're talking about all the material that we feel that they're going to be asking us questions on. And we're making assumptions because we're not going to talk about anything that's on the test if anybody even in this group has even taken it. Okay. So I'm going to turn it over to Natalie.
Okay, thank you for disclaiming that for me. I was just gonna briefly kind of go over this here and just, pretty much say all the things that you said. So yeah, I will be covering 3.1. It is health promotion and disease prevention, applying a whole person perspective. The overview is health and wellness involve more than the absence of disease. Wellness is a concept includes all aspects of physical, psychological, spiritual, and social well-being. It is a multidimensional and holistic facet. Wellness also involves a self-directed and evolving process to achieve full potential. Many coach training programs emphasize this whole person perspective using a wheel or other framework that recognizes multiple dimensions of one's health. So the key topics that I'll kind of go over will be health-related quality of life and well-being, or you'll see it shortened as HRQOL, well-being concepts. And then I believe it's still here, but I'll also show the Illness-Wellness Continuum. So kind of like the spectrum that illness and wellness kind of have. So move some things around. So we'll start with health-related quality of life and well-being. And I really liked these two quotes. The first is, high-level wellness defines choices that we can make over things we can control in our life, including our behavior. And I also think of that as like including how we react to things as well. Wellness is a process, never a static state. So it's constantly evolving and changing. Health is defined as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely an absence of disease or infirmity. If there's any questions or any like statements or any perspectives that you have, if anybody has from like working with clients or anything like that, feel free to just unmute yourself and jump right in. That's definitely welcome. Health is a resource that allows people to realize their aspirations, satisfy their needs, and cope with the environment in order to live long, productive, or maybe long, restful, and fruitful lives. So this link here, this is how the CDC defines, I think, like well-being and health-related quality of life. So if you're interested in that, I will pop it in the chat. Maybe not.
The document that you're using, is that one that you have made yourself, or is that one that you are using from someone else?
It's one that I'm using from someone else.
Okay.
So
I think I actually have that one, and I will post it in the chat for you then.
perfect. So yeah. I found it really helpful and beneficial. I did make some adjustments to it, adjustments that I could, because I thought it was, after a while, it was like, okay, these are the same principles. So I definitely made some adjustments to it. And I really liked some of the references that it had. So I kind of highlighted those, and I'll kind of talk about those too. So as we mentioned, it's multidimensional, focus on health status related to physical, mental, emotional, and social functioning, which will also break down each of those as well. So focuses on the impact of health status on quality of life, exploring the effects on social participation. And social participation includes education. So, does the client go to school? Do they engage with their classmates? Do they engage with their professors, their peers, extracurriculars, employment? So coworkers play a huge role in the quality of work that you do. And sometimes sometimes the work matters, absolutely, but it's the social connection between coworkers that really is more important than the work itself. Civic duties, social leisure activities, such as friend groups, things like that. Family roles. This one is also particularly really important. typically linked to patient outcomes about health. And we'll talk more about patient outcomes as well. Self-rated experience that can add on to clinical measures of health, such as BMI or, things like that. Well-being assesses the positive effects, the positive aspects of a person's life, focuses on the circumstances under a person's control, rather than just minimizing illness and risk factors. The state of being comfortable, happy, healthy, judging life positively and feeling good, self-perceived health. So I thought this was also really interesting. So how does the person perceive their health status? So do they do all the things, get enough, sleep, enough food, enough daylight, enough activity, but do they perceive themselves as unhealthy for whatever reason, even though they're doing all the things? And how can a coach kind of help, bridge the gap between what's being perceived and what is, actual reality? So the different types of well-being are physical well-being, feeling healthy, being full of energy, not having any fatigue, naps, or things like that. Mental well-being, satisfied with one's life, balancing positive and negative emotions, finding purpose and meaning in one's life. And I think a little bit further down, we talk about negative emotions and how they're not the opposite of positive emotions, and how it's really important to acknowledge and kind of coach through negative emotions. Social well-being involves providing and receiving quality support from family and friends, having a strong, healthy social group around you. Like I mentioned, coworkers earlier, that's really important part of social well-being. Spiritual well-being, environmental. So I think of things like, depending on where the client might live, structural type things to their home, changes that they can make, things like that. Intellectual and occupational well-being. Yes, thank you for sharing that, Sherry. So well-being includes the presence of positive emotions and moods. Positive emotions are not the opposite of negative emotions and should be fostered. So whenever I think about negative emotions, I think about them as, they're keys, they're clues, they're trying to tell me something important. They're trying to provide information about a situation or something like that. But I think negative emotions are really important for awareness,
Hey,
especially
Natalie.
meeting with clients. Yes.
Hey, sorry to interrupt, but this is
Okay.
Michelle. So I was just going to share with you because, in Well Coaches, I thought it was really great because we talked about this as well. And we talked about the fact that emotions, whether they're positive or negative, are always communicating a need being met or not met. So negative is an unmet need, positive is a met. So even when clients are describing something positive, we talk through what need was met, or if it's negative, what need isn't being met, how can I have that need met, which is a great way to approach coaching. So I really like what you said there.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I love that a negative emotion is a need that's not being met, that needs to be addressed, and a positive emotion is a need that is being met and can still be talked about. I really like
Correct.
that for
Yep.
sharing. So yeah, satisfaction with life, that's included in well-being, fulfillment, positive functioning. And then we go into the 6 dimensions of health. And so this is basically, it corresponds with everything that we just mentioned, with the types of well-being, which are social, emotional, occupational, spiritual, intellectual, and physical. And what I really liked about this is that you could very easily either find it or maybe through your coaching program, or you could even make it yourself. if doing like the wellness wheel or a wellness bar graph even, and having your client kind of fill out on a scale of 0 to 10, or with this much of a purple expo marker, this is my social meter, this is how I feel about my social interactions, or this is how I feel about my spiritual health and well-being. For public health purposes, physical well-being is also critical to overall well-being, associated with decreased risk of CVD and type 2 diabetes.
I'm gonna pause and just come back to that 6 dimensions of health with Hettler real quick. And
Yep.
I think a lot of us, and I actually learned this from a prior cohort, to remember that by the acronym POSIES, POSIES, for your physical health, your occupational, your social, your intellectual, your emotional, and then your spiritual. So yeah, and that's written up there. So was that already up there?
Love that. Thank you. No, I did
Oh,
not
you
have-
just wrote it? Okay.
I just typed it in there because I was like, oh,
Okay.
okay, I need to remember that.
Okay, so anyway, I just thought I would throw that in there. And I was also going to mention what page that's in on the CPM book, but for some reason I can't find it right this second. But if I find it, I'll throw it in the notes. So keep going where you were.
Okay.
You're doing awesome. Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay, so higher levels of well-being are associated with decreased risk of heart disease, illness, injury, better immune functioning, speedier recovery, increased longevity, work productivity, and community contribution. So I think particularly on this piece, I want to say that there is research-backed scientific evidence on how working on your well-being can help decrease illness and disease. And it's really beautiful. If you know somebody who's actually gone through something, huge, life-altering disease or something, or if you yourself have gone through it and then started implementing a lot of mindfulness, well-being type promoting activities, it can be a really beautiful thing to witness. Social determinants of health, social resources that could improve your health, such as, I think I meant to delete that, such as maybe walking. SHEEN is social resources that could improve health. So social community, there's blue zone communities. Has anybody watched the blue zone communities on Netflix? Yes, please tell me about it. I haven't watched it yet. Did you enjoy it?
I did. Were you talking
Yeah,
to me?
go for it.
Oh yeah. I did. I read the books, and I really enjoyed the study of it. And there's a lot to be said for having that network already built around you. And it's not, for me, it was interesting that it's not just, people in foreign lands. It's right here. There's, I believe it's the Seventh-day Adventist in California that are the predominant population in a particular area, and just because of their faith, they prioritize. I believe they're vegetarian, or are they vegan? I believe they're at least vegetarian, and they make it actually part of their faith. It's and movement, faith, and I mean. Nutrition and movement is just woven into their spirituality. So it's, one
what?
package.
Here's an incredible show. I think it was Netflix, on the Blue Zones.
That's what she's talking about.
Yeah, these people living to their 100, but
That's what she's saying. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't hop in a car. They have community. They check on each other. They garden. They eat stuff out of the ground. Yeah, I love that.
There's also, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Dr. Walter Longo and the longevity diet, but he actually grew up in one of the blue zones.
Mhm.
And he you know, I mean, that was just life. So it was really interesting when he came to the US and what he saw. And I won't distract from the rest of the studies, but it was a great movie and definitely worth a watch.
Well, yeah, I'll definitely have to check it out. I think I had seen or heard something about it, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember learning about that, when I was going to school like 2 years ago, and I was like, I would love to watch that documentary. And then I don't know, I don't watch a whole lot of TV, and so when I do watch TV, I usually just like go to what I watch. So I'll definitely make an effort to watch this because it sounds like it's really interesting. So, yeah, and then also other social determinants of health are access to healthcare, and also I think not only access to healthcare, but perceived feelings about healthcare providers. So, they may have access, but they don't trust their healthcare providers. So that's also another facet of that. Economics, education, and neighborhood are also important parts. Importance of place and fundamental to understanding social determinants of health, including quality of education, exposure to crime, and socioeconomic conditions. Physical determinants of health include green space, so outdoor, spaces, built environments, exposure to toxins. And I think something that's not in here, but I don't know if anybody has heard of like adult playgrounds. That's what I think of when I see something like built environments. Things where adults can go and play. Of course, we can play on like the children's play structures on parks and stuff. It may look a little funny and goofy, but like we can do that as adults. And I think this sense of play is really important for adults as well. Well-being is dependent on good health, of course, good physical health, positive social relationships. Having a supportive relationship with one of the strongest predictors of well-being. And I really want to stay on this topic. So my demographic of coaching has been working with clients who struggle with substance abuse disorders, and also sometimes having mental health underlining symptoms or diagnoses. And it is disheartening to see that some people don't have anybody. And so it can really make a world of a difference in a person's life if they just have one solid person that they can talk to. And so one of the questions that I'll often ask clients is I'll say, do you have anybody that you can talk to about this? Other than me, really quickly, for just a quick interaction. Like, is there anybody that you can talk to no matter where you go, that you can call? And sometimes they say, yeah, I have, my sponsor, or I have this friend, or I have, a family member, my dad or my cousin or my mom or whoever. And that's great. Sometimes they say no. Sometimes they say, I don't feel like I have anybody that I can talk to. And so then that's when I jump in and I say something like, okay, well, how would you feel about, working together on getting set up with a therapist? Have you ever done therapy before? And then kind of exploring that realm. Because it really makes the world of a difference. And also, best to have somebody that's not going to judge you, somebody that's just going to listen to you no matter what it is. But really just having that person is important. Just looking over the chat. Oh, page 115. Cool. Availability and access to basic resources. Genes, environmental factors can have an effect on the expression of genes. What is it called? Epidemiology is really, really interesting. Personality optimism versus, that kind of positivity mindset, extroversion, self-esteem, age, income and work, and relationships. Main difference between health-related quality of life and well-being. So health-related quality of life really has to do with client outcomes, focus on deficits and functioning, i.e. pain, things like that. Well-being, assets and functioning include positive emotions, psychological resources, for example, positive affect, autonomy, and mastery. So I kind of think of it as health-related quality of life as what are the, like, what's the data or what's the more physical outcomes that we can get. Let's say they're trying to lose weight, or a big one is trying to lower their blood pressure, right? So to me, those would be like direct outcomes, versus well-being might be more emotional outcomes, or maybe they react to a situation a little bit differently than how they would have in the past. Health-related quality of life and well-being. So encourage to change, which I think is actually, let me double check.
Is this Prochaska's?
No, that is changing to thrive, which is
Oh,
what
you're right. Okay.
which is what I was just looking at. I was like, wait a minute, did I? No. So yeah, it's pages 235 to 251. And I think so this is something that I kept from the previous document, because I'm not sure I've read Courage to Change. So has anybody else read Courage to Change? Did they find it helpful? Maybe not.
Nobody's read it.
Someone's read it?
I don't know that anybody has. If they
Yeah.
would, they pop in. Oh, actually, that was a misnote. I'm sorry. That actually was not Courage to Change. I listened to the person present this. This is actually in the Thriving to Change book.
Oh, it is.
okay.
Okay.
Yes, it is 100%, because I actually marked it off and wrote Thriving. So yeah. 'Cause I
You
had
mean
printed
changing
this.
to thrive?
This is the Changing to Thrive book.
Okay.
Yes, and they just messed up whenever they wrote it in there.
So let me see.
So if you want to just change the Courage to Thrive to Changing to Thrive, and I'm going to open up my book and look at it if you want to go ahead and continue to instruct.
Yeah, for sure. I just opened up my book, and it's reducing multiple high-risk behaviors
Of well-being. Yeah.
So yeah, that
Improving
definitely
your
makes
physical
sense.
well-being health. Yeah.
Yeah, so it definitely makes sense for and I haven't quite gotten there yet in my book.
I have, and I just redid this whole thing because I thought it would be okay if I just read half the book. And then whenever it got to alcohol, I stopped. And then whenever I realized, oh no, I have to know the alcohol, I reread the whole book. And I really needed to listen to, I feel like I needed to listen to a couple of the chapters twice. But anyway, yeah, that's definitely in the Changing to Thrive book.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, they talk about, let's see here, just to like quickly summarize it. So increase your positive emotions to achieve happiness and well-being. So they cover serenity, interest, hope, inspiration, awe, amusement, gratitude, joy, pride, and love. So yeah, and just like a kind of a sidebar for this book, something that I really enjoyed about it is that they talk about the importance of socially sharing your changes that you want to make, or maybe even things like this, like you in a post on social media, because I feel like that's a big part, you share some inspiration that you had while checking out like the botanical gardens or something, you know, or you share a piece of serenity that you had during your morning meditation, you know, like sharing that part is like it's a really important part of change for the individual doing the sharing. In our Losky, pages 71 to 72, coaching the whole life. So self-defeating behaviors, self-limiting beliefs, interpersonal skills, determining success, not knowledge, should be holistic, looking at 360 of wellness. And I'm pretty sure, I think it's in our Losky, he shares those actual tools for measuring well-being in different areas of life. In CPM, pages 3 and 4, which I've honestly loved reading CPM. I think it's just the type of material and the way it's written, it's just very easy to like digest. So stress management, event mounts that negatively affects your ability to learn, change the present moment, and it accelerates the onset of chronic disease and death. Mindfulness evidence mounts at improvement of emotional regulation, improvement with medical conditions. Improves emotions and caring relationships, improves mental and physical health, hoping for future research and improvement, enrolls meaning higher purpose. Pressing problem to help people take care of their health. Most healthcare providers do not have skills or they are compensated for health. So I will say, yes, that's probably true. However, it definitely depends on the doctor that your client is working with. I personally gravitate towards female doctors and nurse practitioners and DOs for the very reason that it's not so much a skill set that they have, rather it's more of like a life experience that I feel like they have that just resonates with me a little bit more, and with my clients when I've talked to them about you know, who their primary care physician is. So patients or clients are challenged to navigate obstacles of change. They experience resistance, confusion, ambivalence. Most do not think they can change or have the skills to change. So there's a big, sometimes there's a big gap in wanting to and managing the base reality of changing. So when I was working with clients who struggle with substance abuse disorders, they really wanted to change, sometimes they knew it, but it was just like too big of a task, right? So how can we coach the gap, so to speak, and you know, kind of highlight, you know, the positive things that they're already doing to change. So I worked in a residential detox facility. And so one of the things that I would often say to clients who wanted to change, usually the conversation would go along the lines of, you know, do you want to change? Are you ready to change? And I found that to be a really powerful question to ask clients, because sometimes they would be like, nope, I don't want to quit using. I'm fine just where I'm at. And so kind of gauging where they're at in the change the cycles of change was really helpful, because then I could say, okay, sounds good. Let's get you a snack. Let's get you something to drink. Let's hit those basic needs to try and at least improve their well-being, in a very short acute time. If they said, yeah, I really want to change, I've struggled with this for so long, the things, then I might say something like, okay, well, first let's highlight that you're here, you're at a detox facility, you showed up voluntarily, you're taking the active steps to change. And so highlighting what they've already done up until they are meeting with me has also been really important. The expert approach sends the message that you are not in charge, which equals low self-efficacy. So I think this could be worded a little bit better, but wording it in a way that the client is the expert, right? Always defer back to the client. Which of your topics do you want to talk about today in today's session? Always deferring back to them kind of takes the pressure off the coach and kind of takes the coach off the pedestal, or whoever off the pedestal. And by doing that, you actually raise self-efficacy in the client when they're like, oh, I really want to focus on exercising, in this session. And I want to talk about, how that might look for me, and, what one thing I want to implement before my next session with you. Building confidence requires new patterns of thinking, doing, and relating. So cultivating those new patterns with clients, building on what is working, like I mentioned before, kind of bridging the gap, whole person view, multiple areas are intertwined. Okay, wellness, the presence of well-being, and the culmination of life and life-giving practices that includes mindfulness, self-compassion, energy, and all that contributes to thriving. That's in more page 129. So well-being concepts, Arlovsky covers Maslow's hierarchy of needs in page 27 to 33. Human beings have within them a natural tendency to want to strive in a positive way to actualize their true potential. So, and again, it's very interesting going from working with clients who are at their lowest, most, and a lot of them will say it, they're like, this is rock bottom for me. And it's really interesting seeing human motivation still come out when they're at their lowest, and still recognize, okay, it's time to eat. I need to get up. I need to eat my food, and then I can come back to bed, or their only goal for the day is to shower. And it's like, that's, you got to break it down to the bare minimums, back to the basics. And so it's really been interesting to see Maslow's hierarchy of needs in that context. And also I've heard and read on how Maslow's hierarchy of needs corresponds with the chakra system. So if anybody has any education or knowledge or background in that, that's also a really interesting thing to kind of learn about. Let me check the chat. I'm having a hard time keeping up with it.
Trying to keep an eye on it. So I think just the last question.
Okay. Is that saying most healthcare professionals don't have emotional intelligence? I didn't get which skill. So I think that is what this is saying. And I feel like It's a little outdated, and it really depends. Most healthcare providers do not have the skills, or are they compensated for health? Is that the one? I think so. So potentially, yes. Not that healthcare professionals don't have very important, very knowledgeable information, but that emotional intelligence, I think most professionals, healthcare professionals such as doctors, dermatologists, whoever, do have emotional intelligence, but I don't think they employ those skills when they're working with clients so much. I think most do, but I think they can be so clinical, that sometimes they forget that there's a living and breathing person in front of me, not test results in front of me. So it really depends on the professional. I really try and steer clear of any blanket statements, because it really depends on who you're working with. And it also depends on how the patient navigates their interaction with their doctor. So does the patient already have their doctor on a pedestal? Or are they already walking into the office like, heal me, figure it out, give me the answers? There's already a dynamic that's set up in that respect. So yeah, you're welcome. Okay, self-actualization equals a high level of awareness. So yeah, self-esteem needs, adequate self-esteem, belonging needs, inclusion, community, peer health norms, spiritual. Again, having those healthy, work relationships, and as such, safety needs equals community, families, self-sufficient, psychological needs, nutrition, movement, breathing. When I worked on the detox unit, I often, and when I say we provided the bare minimum, I really and truly mean that. Not that it wasn't helpful, but it was kind of like, how can we provide a little bit more? Like, okay, we have showers, we have beds, we have food, we have snacks. What's missing, right? And so one of the things that I saw that was missing was there's no movement. And so a lot of the times, and we can't make clients do anything. I can't say, okay, we're going outside to play basketball. All I can do is ask and say, hey, we're going to step outside and get some sunshine, get our feet in the grass. We're, maybe play some basketball. Do you want to come? And hopefully they say yes. Sometimes they say no, but providing that, that piece of movement, of direct sunlight, really was beneficial for clients who were going through withdrawals. When someone attempts to improve their lifestyle, they attempt to meet needs in increasingly ineffective ways. There are two forces: one, clinging to safety and defensive out of fear, or two, urges towards wholeness and full expression of our true self. There's a table. I'm not sure about this table. So moving backwards into safety, which enhances danger, minimizes attractions. Sorry, moving forward towards growth enhances attractions, minimizes danger. Inner critic goes towards safety, and the status quo every time. Safety needs are a proponent of growth needs. So providing a safe environment for somebody to talk about, these potentially very vulnerable topics. Growth forward takes place in little steps, which makes us feel safe and able to take another. Again, just providing that space. So more resources here from Arlovsky. So wellness is not the absence of disease or illness, but continually striving to live in a life that's full of meaningful zest for an exuberant life. It's not an endpoint, but cycling through the urban flow of life towards higher levels of wellness. Self-responsibility for your own health and not others. Nutritional awareness, stress management, physical fitness, environmental sensitivity at physical, social, and personal levels. They highlight the natural world. So here was the 6 dimensions of wellness again, that we covered. 12 dimensions model of wellness. I think that's another like tool to use. The iceberg method, also a really good one, working with clients and letting clients kind of put what's above the surface versus what's below the surface. More tools here. What I really wanted to get to here, which I'm sure we have all seen in our coaching programs, is the Illness-Wellness Continuum. So what's really interesting about this is that I feel like there's never ever really any stagnancy on this, and that it can fluctuate quite a bit. So for example, I might be meeting with a client who, let's say this client is a middle-aged white man who is struggling with alcohol, and really he came to detox willingly. Something happened at home. He ended up getting picked up by paramedics and then getting taken to the detox unit. And maybe it's been a couple of days, he's blowing zeros now, he's off his withdrawal meds, and I'm meeting with him after all of this has just happened, right? And he shares with me perhaps a little bit of education about alcohol withdrawals, right? And so, okay, that tells me he's at the forefront of his health, and that he has a level of awareness too, and that he's recognizing that he's still like subtly swinging back and forth with okay, this illness, if I keep drinking, what does that look like? But sometimes I have these moments of heightened awareness and maybe even a little bit of growth here and there, that's allowing him to change for the long term. How would you phrase a question around the Travis wellness spectrum? I know the image, but how would we apply this? Yeah, for sure. So maybe applying it direct, I would open that up for everybody. Does anybody else, has anybody else directly used this in their coaching sessions? Have they applied it directly? So I would say this one, I mean, it can be applied directly, though I think this one is really particular for coaches, to have a level of awareness on where their client might be. You might could share this with your client, But even then, that might be a little too educational for a coaching session. I think it's more so in terms of awareness for clients on, or in terms of awareness for coaches on where, on the broad spectrum of where they could be. Ooh, okay, so there's a practice exam question that involves a continuum. So yeah. Yeah, I feel like it can be kind of tricky to because you don't ever want to. Would it be finding other levels of well-being in spite of medical condition? Yeah, I love that. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, like let's say we have a client who is, struggling, who is just newly disabled, and kind of exploring other ways they might be we'll say newly physically disabled. Maybe it's a temporary disablement. But let's say that's in the physical realm, right? But maybe spiritually, because they have more time to meditate or because they have more time to connect with their spiritual community, they're on the growth spectrum of that one. So yeah, that would be a good way. Other levels. Yeah, for sure. Anything else on the illness-wellness continuum anybody wants to share?
Jennifer, I think you've got something good to share if you're still available to talk. She may have stepped away. But anyway, Jennifer, we were going over this this past weekend, and we went through the fact that once you become aware, then you educate yourself, and then you're growing, and then you start taking actions, which is growth. So then also with the treatment paradigm, you need to know that that's in the disability, the symptoms, and the signs, and the fact that that is when doctors treat you. Doctors only treat you when you're in or traditional conventional doctors typically only treat you when you're in the treatment paradigm, and they don't ever treat you whenever you're on the wellness. The whole thing's the wellness paradigm, the whole illness wellness, but once you're above the neutral point. So whenever you're in the awareness, education, and growth. So one of the sample test questions said something about this is what the client's doing, and she already said that the client was aware of it and that she was in the process of doing it, which meant she was in the growth part. So we had never really seen it. So I think I saw that in the questions about in what level of the well-being can you be in. And then obviously if you've got a medical condition, say high blood pressure, you're going to be in the symptoms and signs. And then once the doctor gets you treated, and if your treatment is using medication and the medication is fixing your blood pressure, then you're back to the neutral point. You still actually have it, but that has given you the ability to stabilize your blood pressure using the medication. But technically speaking, the person still has high blood pressure. I do have a link. Well, I actually did a printout, and I will put this in the chat. And this is a really good link that I had went to before in the past. But what I did is I literally just printed that page and put it on the Google Drive under the competency section. So this really just shows it's a pretty good document that has some good reading to it.
Awesome. Thanks for that.
That's all I got.
Yeah, thank you so much for chiming in. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess I can read about it since it's here. So it illustrates the relationship of the treatment paradigm to the wellness paradigm. An individual can move beyond the neutral point to increasingly higher levels of wellness. Moving from the center to the left shows progressively worsening state of health. Moving to the right of center indicates increasing levels of health and well-being. The treatment paradigm is only designed to bring you to the neutral point where symptoms of disease have been alleviated. Drugs, surgery, psychotherapy. So, and I think the treatment paradigm, in my brain, I know we don't treat as coaches, right? We don't do that part by any means. And my experience working with people with substance abuse disorders, so I was my title was behavioral health worker, and so something that we had to talk about was treatment options. And so something, I mean, it's a tricky conversation to have, right? Because you can't give treatment options, but helpful questions might be like, how do you want to go about treating your high blood pressure? What does treatment for hypertension look like to you? And of course, asking those questions of, what type of information does the client already have on what things help lower blood pressure, or what types of things might help them with their substance abuse disorder. And then, of course, following up with the question of, can I share with you something that I've found helpful for other people? And then the client can say, yeah, that would be helpful. Or they can say like, no, I'm not really interested in hearing any treatment options at this time. So yeah, definitely asking those consent questions is important. The wellness paradigm can be used at any point on the continuum, kind of like I've mentioned, helps you move toward higher levels of wellness. So it goes all the way from left to right. So it directs you beyond the neutral point as far towards wellness as possible, which includes awareness, education, and growth. Wellness paradigm is not meant to replace the treatment paradigm, but to work together. Obviously, you can't really have one without the other. Treatment can look very different. It can look like medications, psychotherapy, surgery, things like that. So, and I think that's all I have. And I have a little guest here saying hello. So yeah, I think that's everything. I feel like it's all really good information, but yeah, of all the things, I really wanted to cover disease, but I think somebody beat me to it. I thought that was a really good topic for next week. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Natalie. It's a lot of work, and appreciate you.
Thank you. Can we see your guest, Natalie? Who is this?
This is Swiffer.
How old is Swiffer?
She's 11 years old. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So she's probably Swiffer's leaving more on the floor than Swiffering it up.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, she's not